Good morning. I think I'm probably gonna get straight into this because I did want to start a little earlier because I'm not gonna we're starting in VLR. Like, we're gonna play Zero Time Dilemma, but I do want to like talk a little bit about the game because like I haven't looked through all the gold files first of all, and okay, this is a little petty of me, but like I am 2 achievements away from just 100%ing this game, and one of them, well, there's one for getting all the rest of the achievements, right? The other one is specifically getting all of the files. And I just completely missed one in the infirmary somehow. So while I'm kind of generally talking about the game, I'm gonna try and like find where this thing is that we missed. I don't know where that's going to be, and hopefully I don't take too long trying to remember how this room works. But yeah, so I've had some time to like really reflect on the game, and like, oh, actually, I should get rid of you. That would be nice. Like, it's very clear that, like, 999 and Zero Time Dilemma are gonna be in my head for a long time. Some good video games. Some very good video games. And at the bottom, well, at the end of the last stream, I was like, oh man, VLR might just be my favorite game, period. And actually, you know what? Sorry. I'm gonna look something up, because, like, I've obviously, like, actually, what do they call them? Sorry, I'm gonna look this up just to make it a little bit easier on myself. Google VLR Infirmary Archives. Someone also missing one archive as well. Was in the same situation. It's easy to miss because the information of the file is available to see without actually picking the file up. It's the TV screen turned on. Oh, okay, so we need to get the chip. Or the memory card. So yeah, I think there's like... Oh man, where do I begin with this? Maybe I'll just get this first so I can kind of think and look at the same time. Or, like, it'll be easy to talk about when I'm looking through all the gold files, I think. So we're just gonna speed through this to find the memory card. Fuck, I feel like it was... No. There's a memory card here, right? Okay. I'm just gonna make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fuck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That was it. Wow. I literally didn't click the... See, that's kind of weird. Like, there are a lot of times where it'll just show you a white blank screen and you click on it to get some information. But that one, it just... yeah. Huh. That's weird. Okay, well, we got that then. In that case, I'm gonna jump to some place with better music for discussing the game. I think this is probably fine. So, there we go. Let's have a quick look at all the secret files, because, this is, it'll kind of inform, what I want to talk about here. Let's see. Yeah. We've got the AB room. Quantum computer. Device built by... Yep. Yeah. So, this... like, quantum computer is important because, well, I mean, it's not really important, it's just kind of supplementary information. But there is a... I think my housemate's doing stuff. Like, there's a quantum computer in the Q room, so I guess, like, hey, did you know? Quantum computers. Here's what they're up. Here's what they are. That kind of makes sense, right? Oh, whoops. What is a nonary game? Nonary game rules. Supplementary pairs. 9 doors. Total lunar eclipse. Soparil. Atom. Newspaper excerpt. Pandemic. Radical 6. Injection gun. What is this again? Oh, that's erotic units, right? Sigma's cat problem, which is the whole Schrodinger thing, which I want to talk about a little bit too. Phone. Oh, this was the thing we found in... Yeah, that was going to tell you, that was going to tell you a couple more numbers to put in on the phone in the crew quarters. So, I talked about this a lot during the playthrough, but, like, this file right here... The golden files are meant to be supplementary information on, like, second playthroughs and stuff like that, right? I don't think the devs are expecting everyone to burn through this on hard mode, getting every secret password the first time. Some people just aren't here for that. Other people get it, will want to be like me and get it, like, on the way through to get the true ending the first time, blah, blah, blah. Like, get all the information they can, basically. And, like... I feel like they could have designed this in a way where... Like, well, okay. Ideally, it would have been better to only reveal these titles once they've kind of become relevant, right? To either give you a little bit more information or, just fun fact kind of things, right? Or actually kind of summarize a point that's... a very important point that's made by a character, like Gollum's story, the point here. Like, kind of, positing the whole, Chinese room / Lotus's rant thing. Like, that's good to have just to, like, even as reference material, right? Because you're like, oh, fuck, they keep talking about Gollum's thing, and I've been jumping around all the place. What the hell did we talk about during that? And that's where these come in useful. It's a shame you only get those when you do the, like, really hard stuff, but again, like, it's meant to be a reward for that. The problem here is, like, this one in particular, and I did soften up a bit on this. Initially, I thought, oh, fuck. When I first read this, I thought this spoiled me on something huge, right? That the whole thing is a Turing test, and I think that was one of my big theories once we hit the Dio ending, was that, this whole setup was something like a Turing test between two people. Those two people being, I think at the time I thought maybe Phi and Sigma, because those seem to be the only two people that jump around like we do. So, like, you know, maybe the whole file system and, you know, the way that the AB game plays out, maybe we, or maybe Sigma or Phi, is actually a machine, and Zero is trying to judge whether the AI they've created is smart enough to, like, be fooled, like, fool even their creator. Like, Zero doesn't know if Phi or Sigma is the AI. He knows that one of them is, but da-da-da-da-da. That kind of thing, right? That didn't turn out to be the case, although this is very relevant because it's, like, it's very core to Luna's whole thing. So yeah, in terms of this being a file, I think this is actually fine. I softened up a little bit on it, but the problem is that, like, you get this file before you even have that conversation with Phi. Like, I think that conversation with Phi just happens just before... It happens just before we have to run off to the white doors? Or maybe it's an A-B game? I actually don't remember off the top of my head. But this is cut short, but basically it's like, this is one of the last things that happens in the scenes after you get this file. And it kind of sucks that it, like, preempts it a bit. But obviously, once you learn that, which, unfortunately, the fact that you have to learn that kind of sucks. But, once you learn that, you can just avoid it like I did and go, okay, is there anything here that I can ignore? Yes? Cool. Or, is there anything I recognize? Okay, I'll read that. Anything else? Nope. So, yeah. Actually, hold on. You know what? I'm going to pull up Notepad because I do want to remember there's something about, like... There's something about what I just said about the whole Turing test thing that I want to come back to. Coroner. Not to be confused with a corner. A coroner is a government official who assists law enforcement by investigating the cause of death and dealing with the paperwork and logistics surrounding corpses. It can also be used colloquially to refer to someone who performs these duties whether or not they are actually employed by the government. An autopsy is a post-mortem thing. It is also super gross, thank you. Luminol is an organic compound with a chemical formula C8H7N3O2. When mixed with a hydroxide salt and hydrogen peroxide, it will glow blue when it comes in contact with blood and certain other substances. This property has made it a useful tool in criminal investigations, where it can reveal bloodstains that have been cleaned up. Keep this in mind next time you're contemplating how to deal with the neighbors listening to death metal at 3 in the morning. Yeah, no one get ideas from that. Horrible people playing that stuff at 3 AM. Moving on. First glance, case bracelet seems different from the other. Fucking excuse me? This would have been the one from the control room, I guess? This literally shows you Kay's fucking... Jesus Christ. I wonder what's going on here. I mean, to be fair, it's a little out of context, but I'm really surprised they didn't just show, like, part of the, just, like, showing the points thing. That would have been a lot less of a leading picture to use here. Although the design is slightly different and is not a part of his suit. The bracelet is attached directly to his wrist with the face looking out through a hole in his armor. Just like the other bracelets, it will only come off when he escapes or when his heart stops beating. A memory condition where the sufferer retains knowledge such as language, social common sense, and so on, but memories of their own past and personality disappear. Its cause is usually psychological, but in rare cases it can be caused by serious head trauma. Kay suggested that an extremely painful breakup might have been the cause of his condition, but generalized amnesia usually requires a much more powerful trigger than breaking up with someone. In fact, a painful breakup often has the opposite effect. You want desperately to forget, but find that to be impossible, which leads to all sorts of other mental disorders. Or so the person sitting behind me says. These notes are always written in a very interesting voice. And, like, it's meant to, like, almost directly be, like... Like, I want to say it's, like, it's implied to sort of... Or the intention is not for it to be a diegetic one, but more like like, you can see a dev having to spend a day or two writing out the golden files and rereading them, and it's just getting to the point that they put in shit like this, you know. Yeah, that was a bunch of... I think we moved on to the next thing, yeah. Hi, Free the Soul, an emerging religious organization with a rapidly growing membership. Some figures claim their congregation numbers over 1 million in countries across the world. Originally, the organization called itself Free the Soul of Y, but later dropped of Y to become simply Free the Soul. The founder of the religion is known as Brother, and his true identity is a mystery. Only a small number of the highest-ranking members have ever seen him. The doctrine of Free the Soul demands that its adherents separate themselves from the world, free themselves of lust, and release their souls from their physical bodies, so that they can be purified. Its followers believe that they will be born again as a new race, and that the world will be transformed into a place of equality, no conflict or poverty. Considering how a peaceful world of equality with no conflict or poverty usually plays out in the movies, they seem like a pretty scary group of people. Free the Soul is a powerful news, and the Myrmidons are their elite frontline soldiers that in that secret war. The general public knows nothing about the Myrmidons, but their actions have put them on watch lists of intelligence communities across the globe. Rumors say that all Myrmidons have the same face, suggesting that they may all be clones of a single person. No one knows where this rumor comes from exactly, but I can tell you that it's a very credible source. The founder... As a child, he had a younger brother whom he was very fond of. Unfortunately, the worst happened and the younger brother was murdered. Rage and despair filled Brother, and for 9 days and 9 nights he was consumed by his own misery. On the morning of the 10th day, however, he had a revelation. Mankind was rife with base desires and needed to be purified. God had spoken to him. Dedicated his life to realizing that mission, and at the age of 26 he established Free the Soul Y. Claims that Y is the symbol for miracles. So one thing that I don't think got expanded upon, like, maybe that's intentional, was the whole idea that, like, there seemed to be some implication that Brother was, like, a very powerful receiver, much in the opposite way that Akane is a very powerful transmitter, in terms of the whole morphogenetic field thing. And, like, in some ways, I'm kind of disappointed that there wasn't more expanded on that, but, like, given the literal context of this game, yeah, we were never going to get answers to that. Although it is an interesting concept that, like, someone who is so receptive to the morphogenetic field that they can, like, literally read people's thoughts and see how, you know, shitty a lot of people are, like, how a person that is unable to control that power would be set upon a path of, like, everyone is shit, fuck this, we need to change the world sort of thing, is really interesting. Bracelet 3. Here's some information that isn't revealed in the game. The bracelet put on the left wrists of the 9 participants in the Ambidex game is an important feature that's never mentioned. As soon as it's put on, a needle on the underside activates and inserts itself in the wearer. That doesn't necessarily mean that it injects a drug, only that it activates and pierces the skin. Maybe there's something on the needle, or maybe there isn't. All that's certain is that when someone puts on the bracelet, they get poked. Okay. I don't think that's much of anything, to be honest. AB game. Yep. Voting machine. Hazmat suit. The manual found in the PC contains the following text in reference to these suits. The air in this facility is kept at a very high pressure relative to the outside environment, which we now know is because the outside environment is incredibly low pressure. The lowest it can be, in fact. This is to prevent air contaminated by the virus, blah, blah, blah. Yep. In order to prevent the spread of the virus and maintain a sterile environment. Yada, yada, yada. Cool. Scotch. Little Scotch should scratch this itch after returning from work, which annoys Quark. Root beer float. Yep. Or A and B, the researcher's journal. Yep, the whole Radical 6 warping your mind thing. Holy shit, this is gonna take ages. Huh. Jumpy. The secret of Quark's hat. Don't you think his hat looks kind of weird? There's that huge band that just wraps around his head. Is he hiding a pair of Ferengi ears, or... Ferengi? God, that's a reference. Maybe he's just a young Lobot? Well, this is just between you and me, but... he's got missiles in there. the sides of this hat are hiding those pods, like you see on helicopters or SAM sites. Except these missiles are tiny, and when he gets in trouble, both sides of the hat open up and they just fly out all at once. Like, just kidding. Actually, he just keeps snacks in there. Yep. Okay. Yep. Literal head pack instead of backpack. Sure. Cold sleep. Generally 2 methods of cold sleep. This juice is, yeah. First involves lowering your internal body temperature. This reduces your basal metabolic rate and induces a state similar to hibernation. In other words, your body is still actively functioning, just very slowly. The other sort of cold sleep is one in this game. This involves freezing your body to essentially lock it in whatever state it was in. Until recently, this was impossible because the expansion and crystallization that took place during the freezing process irrevocably damaged human tissue. In the world where this game takes place, however, CAS technology has overcome this hurdle and made cryonics a reality. The resuscitation rate is nearly 100%. In fact, you'd be much more likely to die in a plane crash, which means that freezing yourself to visit the future is safer than flying from Tokyo to Milan. Thank you for that. CAS stands for Cells Alive System, allows organic tissue to be safely and non-destructively frozen in this game. In this game, CAS is used to put people in cold sleep. It supercools the subject with a magnetic field and causes them to freeze almost instantly, preventing crystallization. In real life, the problem comes when you try to thaw something out, which also must be done instantly. In this game, however, the technological magic of the treatment pod makes returning from cold sleep possible. So that was another thing that was just, like, I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more in a second, but that was another thing that just kind of got glossed over. Tenmyoji made the comment that Alice had told her, or sorry, Clover had told him that Alice was all ice. Which, now that we know who Tenmyoji is, may have been a lie, and he was just trying to, like, justify why he potentially knew who Alice was. Which is interesting. Like, I actually don't know how to read that, because Tenmyoji knows. Like, he knows about the past 2 Nonary games. He was there. So he knows about the concept of Ice 9. He knows about Alice, both the character and the story of the Egyptian woman. And like, the question is though, like, did they know that the person they picked up in the desert was Alice? And again, it's something that's, like, never touched upon. That, like, Alice's true origins just aren't explained, which is fine. It doesn't need to be. Like, the question of whether Alice is, in fact, the Egyptian woman that was unfrozen in Nevada, or not, is immaterial to what happens in the game. And indeed, given the fact that, like, we have another person with generalized amnesia, and Alice can, like, do some pretty complex math in her head. That makes me feel like this person was just confused with, the references to Alice in the game being made of Ice 9 was actually made in mistake. Because I feel like you wouldn't be able to do 25-digit prime factorization in your head if you were from Egypt. Like, at least our understanding of how complex math was, or complex the understanding of math was back then, probably wasn't. Actually, no, come to think of it, I don't know if that's true. So my gut tells me that, like, maybe not, but anyway. Past 2 Nonary games. November 2018, 16 children were reported missing. In actuality, 18 children were taken, but 2 were never recorded. The person in charge was someone we will refer to as H. The purpose of the game was to conduct experiments on morphic resonance with the children as test subjects. I won't go into the specifics here, but the short version is that this was the first Nonary game. November 1st, 2027. A total of 9 people participated in this session. They were abducted, just as the children had been, but this time H was not in charge of the game. Clover was a participant in both games, and now she finds herself playing the Nonary game yet again. Yeah, and this is talking about the whole Esper resonance thing. The biggest wave adds the amplitude of smaller waves to its own and covers them up. Hang on. In the context of this game, Espers are people with the ability to access the morphogenetic field. An Esper can increase the strength of their signal by being in close proximity to other Espers, assuming they are the strongest. The strongest signal will absorb any weak ones and use them to amplify its own strength, sort of like waves. The biggest wave adds the amplitude of smaller waves to its own and covers them up. Interesting. So is that implying that, like, Sigma and Phi are, like, incredibly powerful Espers? Because they needed, some people from the past Nonary games, specifically because they were Espers, to kind of, like, amplify things and be able to, like, start bouncing Sigma and Phi around? Nonary veterans. The following 9 people were participants in the Nonary game. Ace, middle-aged man. Snake, Clover's older brother. Real name, Light. Okay. Sure. Santa, arrogant, uncooperative young man. Clover. Still Clover, just younger and with a jacket. with a jacket. That's good. Junpei, hero of 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. June, Junpei's childhood friend. Real name, Akane Kuroshiki. 7. Amnesic detective. Lotus, attractive programmer, has 2 daughters. Kubota, skittish man, gets blown up. Yep. The whole nearest stigmine thing. Ice 9, H, which is Hongo. Ace, morphogenetic field theory. Immunoglobulin. Oh my god, I said it the right time, even though I kind of tripped up on it. Integer factorization, yep. The grave. And then, yeah, Alice's thing. Prisoner's element, antimatter bomb. Yeah, we know how that works. Detonator, sure. Cybernetic arm. A device originally created to weaponize genetically engineered psychic bears. Just kidding, it's actually an arm augmented for online sex chat. Not really. In truth, it's the arm for a mysterious libido-powered robot. No, I'm just messing with you. The cybernetic arm is actually a mechanical limb that you can control with your mind. Really. It has a titanium alloy for bones, and those are covered with ABT, or artificial biological tissue. The ABT even has artificial nerves, so you can feel pain through it just like a real arm. It has veins that connect to the rest of your body, so if you inject medicine into a cybernetic arm, it will flow to the rest of your body. Luna's necklace. The necklace Luna is never seen without has a cage containing a blue bird hanging from it. If you twist the key on the bottom, it plays music. Someone special gave it to her as a gift, and she says it reminded her of the following lesson. Search for happiness wherever you can, because the search itself is what will make you happy. Swimsuit. For some reason, Sigma, or perhaps the author. Hi, Hoss00312, thank you for following. That is like the second person with that name that has followed me. Hang on a second. You just unfollow me and then follow me again? Interesting. I'm going to deal with that in a sec. Okay. Thank you, Xbox controller, for freaking me out appropriately. For some reason, Sigma, or perhaps the author, seems to be unnaturally obsessed with swimsuits. Why is that? Was he involved in a horrible swimsuit accident, now repressed in his youth? Did he have a crush on a high school girl? Crush in high school on a girl on the swim team who put her Olympic aspirations ahead of any possible romance? Is he just a perv? The world may never know. The answer is yes. Antimatter reactor. Sure. Anti-hydrogen atom. Particular type of antimatter. Normal hydrogen atoms have one proton and one electron, but an anti-hydrogen atom has the opposite. One anti-proton and one positron. In November 2010, the European Organization for Nuclear Research issued a statement announcing that they had captured an anti-hydrogen atom. They claimed that they had gathered 38 of them, in fact, and managed to hold them in a special container for 0.2 seconds. Less than 6 months later, in June 2011, they managed to capture several more anti-hydrogen atoms and contain them for more than 1,000 seconds. Although the creation and storage of antimatter is still a difficult obstacle, these results suggest that antimatter reactors could someday be a possibility. Yeah, and then there's the math that tells us about the potency of the bombs, the amount of energy you get by combining, you can get this number using the equation thing, and then there's literally a transcript of basically what do you get when you convert 700 milligrams to that? Yep. Then what's the speed? Oh, this is literally going through the steps of how you would calculate the speed of, like, the energy of... Oh, that's neat. I won't go through that, because that's, yeah, not terribly interesting. Floor B graffiti, hourglass, gentle points, knife. Floor B hallway locks, principle of causality, which is something I want to talk about a little bit. The cards, the slingshot. Test site mystery. The site in question was for a simulated manned mission to Mars held in the Nevada desert. On New Year's Eve, 2028, the audio log from the simulation contains a woman's voice, assumed to be one of the test subjects, saying the following. 6 of us are dead. Counting myself, there are only 3 left. I guess you could say I killed them. No, that's not quite right. Not just them. Not just these 6. All of them. All 6 billion. Most evidence seems to suggest that this was the beginning of the Radical 6 outbreak and that the Nevada facility was the epicenter of the pandemic. General term used to refer to the insects in the epifamily of Termitoidae of the cockroach order Blatodea. That's right. Even though they're sometimes called white ants, termites aren't even in the same family as ants. They're in the cockroach family instead. Also, king crabs are in the hermit crab order, and the remora is in the Perciformes order. Sure. Conjunction. Term used in positional astronomy. Put simply, it means that 2 celestian bodies appear near one another in the sky. When used in the context of our solar system, it often refers to a position where a given celestial body is aligned with the sun. For example, when Mars is on the opposite side of the sun from Earth, it is considered to be in conjunction with Earth. Mercury and Venus, which orbit closer to the sun than the Earth does, have 2 types of conjunction. When they are hidden on the other side of the sun, this is referred to as superior conjunction. When they are lined up on the near side of the sun, this is called inferior conjunction. And there's Tenmyoji's picture. Wait, what? This is a photograph that Tenmyoji was holding. The subject is a girl named Kane Kuroshiki. Kane is one of the people who appeared in the game's sister title, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, as a childhood friend of Junpei. That title's main character. In 999, she was 21 years old. This picture was taken 9 years before that, then when she was 12. Look at the left side Look at the left side of the picture. If you look closely, it looks like there's a man grinning in the background. Do you see him? Don't worry, it seems a little strange. A spirit medium has told us that the person in this picture is a guardian spirit who's looking after her. He must have shown up here because he'd heard what sort of destiny she had in store and decided to see how she was doing. I don't see that at all. That's weird. Oh, shit. Oh, this literally has the... Oh, right. This tells you a thing about the deactivation passwords. Oh. I literally have not heard the word Minkowski space for years until I played this game. Like, I could just... When that concept got dropped, I was like... That's when I knew this game was starting to go. A way of describing reality that adds a fourth dimension of time to the 3 dimensions of space. It was described by German mathematician Hermann Minkowski, and therefore bears his name. It's also the name of a ski resort for miniature cows. Aha. Oh, hi, Calibrated Indigo. How's it going? Logomorph, a scientific name for the order to which rabbits belong, and 0/3's actual name. Yeah, so, I guess a quick thing. I'm, like, doing, like, a brief recap of VLR, because I want to talk about the game a little bit. So, big, gigantic, ruinous endgame spoilers. Just in case. Good, I had an extremely cursed thought and I want to share it, lol. Okay, yeah, well, we're going through it, so we might touch on that. When they were split up at the red, blue, and green chromatic doors, Tenmyoji told Alice that there was something he had to tell her. That something was, of course, his identity, and that he already knew all about Alice in Ice 9, and not because he'd heard about it from Clover. Oh. Interesting. Wait, does that imply that Wait, is Alice Alice, then? Huh. After the second round of the AB game, after going through the purple and green doors, Clover, as a solo, was heard to say the following to Tenmyoji, her opponent. What the heck did you mean with all that? It's not fair. If you're telling me the truth, then So what had Tenmyoji said to her? The same thing he'd meant to say to Alice, of course. He told her who he was. That simple fact shook Clover's resolve and made her vote ally. Probably hadn't been his original intention to betray her, but after thinking about Quark's safety, he probably felt he had no choice and picked betray. God, that fucking sucks. Oh yeah, this game is very mindfucky. That's one way of putting it. Excuse me. God, that's fucked up though. Like, to reveal who you are to Clover, and for that to be like, oh god, no, we have to let him, or we have to ally with him. We can't betray Quark. Blah blah blah. Is, ooh, like, just to turn around and betray is. Played all of them in the series is Brain Owl. I think it's the good Brain Owl, honestly, but that's just me. A can stand for after and B for body, but they can also stand for anima and body. Everything that happened in this facility was part of the AB project. Yeah. Mystery of Phi. So who was Phi? There are a few clues scattered throughout the story, but nothing conclusive. Perhaps the truth will be revealed at the Nevada test site. Perhaps they will. Very perhaps. I guess that also confirms what I was going to say very much later in this before we start Zero Time Dilemma, is that I installed the game, obviously, and part of the Steam thing is just showing you the 9 characters, which includes a character we've seen before, and given the, I think it's the Golden Files ending to this game, is clearly indicative of what is going to happen. Like, I think Zero Time Dilemma probably takes place in the Nevada test site, if I had to guess. Potentially, anyway. Yeah, so. Oh yeah, there was one thing on the notepad that I wanted to... Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things this game does is it lays down a lot of things that could be the broad plot. There's a lot of things to do with, obviously, the past Nonary games, and there's the stuff about the Turing test, and like, well, hold on a minute, how could that possibly, how does that work into that? Is the whole point of this game, is it meant to be a Chinese room Turing test kind of thing? Is it meant to be, like, there are a lot of things that are raised that could possibly point to the, like, motive behind the game before you actually know what that is. And I think one of the interesting things the game does with that is that it puts you in a situation where you really want to hop between the timelines to put the pieces all together. But, like, diegetically, that is the exact reason the game is designed like that, to promote that. And I think it's really interesting that it uses these breadcrumbs to motivate the player to start jumping around and piecing things together, trying to remember everything that happens in the alternate timelines, much in the same way that Sigma and Phi slowly become better at doing that themselves. I think that's really, really interesting, and it's in line with something 999 did, where it very clearly centered the player within the framing device of the entire game was crucial to the story in 999. Like, what you are experiencing is what I experienced throughout the game, throughout that time period, to finally link up in the final moments and get Akane Kuroshiki out of the incinerator. Much in the same way, the game is literally designed in such a way that you have to bounce around a lot. And that's not just the game kind of being like, ooh, cliffhangering you everywhere, like dropping these little things about what the broader kind of conspiracy behind the game could be. That is literally intentional. Like, the whole idea is to make Phi and Sigma jump around more to try and figure things out so they can slowly get to the bottoms of every one of the timelines and put everything together. Much the same way that a player would. I think that is really well done, and easily makes it, like, on par with 999 for me, which, like, is already one of my favorite games. Like, I think it'll be a very long time before I feel like that falls at all. And obviously, just after playing a lot of games in the series, like, it's very possible that, like, I'll have a different opinion later on. So, I think this game does all of what it does very well. But then we come to an interesting comparison with 999. 999 was smaller in scope, but I feel it actually pulled off the entire thing effectively flawlessly. Whereas VLR tried to do something a lot more ambitious, and I think it did it very well, minus a couple of things. And they're, like, really minor, but given the fact that you're, like, I'm holding VLR up to a game that, while smaller in scope, was, like, perfect to me. The fact that VLR has, like, literally any blemishes at all actually makes me think the game is, I don't know, like, a lot of the time I will go along with really I really like games that are ambitious, even if they fall flat. I'll be like, it's better that you actually tried that than tried and failed than this not existing. In most cases, I will take that stance, and even if I don't particularly enjoy a game, I will at least be like, you know what, the fact that this was ambitious, whatever, that is far more valuable than the alternative of this not existing, or being far more bland, you know? Bland and perfect is not nearly as good in my mind as ambitious but flawed. So when I have, like, very good and perfect and very good and pretty much perfect, it's kind of, yeah. I don't know how to feel about them in comparison. Like, one of the things that does kind of bother me, because this game does so well in, this game does so well otherwise accounting for stuff like this. When you get to this decision group here, you choose whether to betray or ally with Fi. And it turns out this is a superposition choice. If you choose betray, Fi will choose ally. If you choose ally, Fi will choose betray. Right? So, the decision you make literally changes what happens in the non-principle of causality way. I think the handling of this moment was actually surprisingly, like, boring. And, like, so you get to this point, and you can either go down the left part, you can either ally, where you get betrayed, and Fi tells you that you betrayed her, so fuck you. Or you can go down the betrayal route, and Fi says, well, fuck you, I'm gonna betray you next time, you piece of shit. And the implication, well, the way the story is written, canonically, or at least to Fi's perception, you betrayed her in one timeline, she went back in time and betrayed you. Right? But that's not necessarily the way the player experiences it. The player could easily go the ally route, see Fi betray them, and then go down the alternate route because, well, meta-wise, that's how you get to be able to go past the other the lock when you ally with Fi. But the game doesn't account for that. And, like, without seeing other playthroughs and that, it's hard to speak to how that moment actually works in comparison to other moments. Because there's obviously the whole thing with Alice, right? Like, if you ally with Alice first, or if you go down the route that ends up with Alice, being betrayed by you, does Sigma freak out the same way he does? Like, I don't know that anymore. I don't know order of like the order I played this game in. I don't know if that's true or not, right? Like, I would assume it'd be a pretty simple thing to be like, okay, has player made decision on other path yet? Yes, no. If they have, play scene. Like, that should be pretty simple, right? This particular moment is a little bit different. And see, the thing I said at the time is, like, I get that they probably don't want to make a causal loop here, because it might break their whole timeline structure, and I will fully admit ignorance in this situation. I do enjoy this kind of story where there are, like, you know, bootstrap paradoxes or whatever, but I have not spent nearly enough time thinking about these kinds of loops to be able to tell you whether or not this would make the entirety of VLR collapse. Like, it wouldn't make, I don't know if the inclusion of this kind of loop would make it not make sense that this game even happened the way it did. I just don't know. But what I will say is, it feels very weird for earlier in the game to account for that in a very clear way, and then not in one of the most important routes in the entire game. Like, the Fi ending. Like, the ending. You know? Yeah. Like, that's one of my gripes here with this, personally. Like, I do think maybe they could have handled that a little better. Even if it was just, like, a quip or something. Because the other thing is that, like, in some places, I feel like Sigma probably reacted to something in a way that implied he knew about something before I really realized that that's what was happening. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happened. But the way the timelines are laid out everything has happened. So everything that caused the timeline to branch out in these directions, I wouldn't say isn't set in stone, but it has happened, right? Like, because we don't go through alternate paths and then come back and Fi suddenly knows something. Fi just knows it. Like, much in the same way of this one, right? We come down here, we ally with Fi, we haven't gone down this route yet, and Fi's like, fuck you, you betrayed me. And we're like, excuse me? Betrayed you? I just tried to ally. Like, the events that take place are, like, already determined to happen, if that makes sense. So I don't think it would actually be that much to say, like, even just slightly imply that the player actually went to ally first, and, like, Sigma betrays Fi, and he's kind of silent. He's like, tried to ally you last time. But it doesn't really... Yeah, like, again, like... It does bother me because in contrast to the rest of the game, I feel like that was handled really poorly. But it might have just been a, fuck, we can't open ourselves up to this, just write it into the story the way the rest of the timeline kind of is. Which I can't begrudge, you know. As much as I feel it does suck that the thing I just said didn't happen, I can completely understand why. Now, I did take, like, a very brief look at what other people thought of the game, and I think there's, like, a similar kind of, like, oh, 999's better because it does a smaller scope, perfect, oh, VLR's better because it's grander, blah, blah, blah. One interesting thing I did note was a take on the characters that I wasn't expecting, and on reflection, I agree with some of it, and not with others. And in particular, it refers to Akane, Tenmyoji, and Clover. So, I do agree with, like, the Clover side of this, where I think the sentiment is for some people that the game didn't do some of the characters justice, or some of the characters that existed before this was written. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Some people feel like the characters that existed in 999 and were referred to and characterized did not hold up in this game. And for Alice, for Clover, I think that's actually true. I think it was a real shame we didn't get another Axe ending. Because that seems like such a... That seems like such an obvious thing to do with this, right? Is to have an end go really fucking bad. Like, I'm sad we didn't see that side of Clover, honestly. So I generally agree with that. Like, it kind of sucks to not see that aspect of her, and I can definitely see, like, something in that I agree with. One of the ones that actually struck me, though, was a lot of people don't like the characterization of Akane and Tenmyoji. And, again, I don't think they're necessarily wrong. If they felt like it was bad, then... If they felt like it didn't, like, match up with their character, with how they understood the characters, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, you're wrong. Like, no. Interpretation is entirely subjective, and if you feel like it didn't do justice to a certain interpretation of a character, that's perfectly valid. You know, whether or not that means, you know, that the writing is bad is an entirely other argument, but yeah. And I can definitely see it. I can definitely see why people would think that, or why people interpret it that way, because I bet a lot of people would look at the relationship between Junpei and Akane as, like, a typical, pretty tropey anime thing. Like, you know, it's basically encapsulated in all the scenes where Akane, like, dies in Junpei's arms. Where it's, like, melodramatic, hits all of the anime tropes, and it's just really sappy and stuff, and... Like, yeah, if your interpretation of their relationship is that, coming into this game where it's just in pieces and irreparable because of literally who Akane is, that sucks. And I don't think it's incorrect to point out that that actually just, like, it can... I get people would be disappointed by that because it doesn't follow through on that, right? I actually find it really fascinating, because and I guess this is somewhat from personal experience, because you can kind of, like, parallel it to it, but I have had friends that I've known for years. Some people, some of them drift apart and whatnot and come back into my life. Like, you know, sometimes I bump into people I've known for years that I haven't seen in a while, or I met someone at one point in my life and they were like, oh, that person's really cool, and, like, you know, a couple of years later they're a piece of shit, or, you know, even better, or, you know, time can change people a lot, is basically the thing. So when I see this, like, I can definitely see parallels to it, because, like, and this also comes back to my interpretation of Akane too. I posed at the time that there were, like, two ways you could read her character. One is, like, the person who's like, oh, well, I have to do this. Like, I'm not this person usually, but I have to do this to, you know, make sure I stay alive. Because if this cycle doesn't continue, then I will die, get deleted from existence, one of the two. And, like, isn't that character, but is like a, I don't want to say typical anime, like, waifu, but, like, is a very rote character, barring the fact that she is put into the position that she has to do this. Whereas the other interpretation of it is that Akane is changed simply by the fact that she has the ability to see into the future, and that her character is not actually the, like, tropey anime girl that she appears to be, but rather, like, something that you could view, or someone that you could interpret has, like, a very different personality after gaining the ability to see into the future. And I think that is the foundation that this interpretation of Akane exists in. Like, this is the final form of Akane who accepts her ability to see into the future. Like, this, I don't want to say emotionless, but this, like, cold and calculating woman who will account for even her own death in the grand scheme of the flow, just to make sure this one thing can happen to change the past. And that is not the sort of character who would, like, blend well with, like, just a kind of, like, I keep referring to it in a negative light, but I don't really have much, like, positive to say about the way Akane was written, like, explicitly in 999. And, like, maybe that's the divide there, right? Like, I didn't really like Akane's interpretation of 999 because she was very forwardly tropey as hell, but there could have been some depth there with the fact that she had future sight and stuff like that. Like, I always imagined the idea that, like, after, like, everyone escaped, that, the mask falls away and Akane Kurashiki is a completely different person. Which I guess we kind of saw at the ending of this. Although I guess it's a little different. Like, again, she is written kind of bland. There was more opportunity to make her, like, a far more, like, interesting person because of the fact that she can see into the future. Because someone who can see across the 4 dimensions and sees all of this shit, right? Deaths across numerous timelines, sometimes the entire Nonary game, and, like, all in service to this one moment that they might be able to change the past. Obviously for, like, to avert a huge disaster. But, like, a character who sees everything across those timelines is gonna treat people, death, time, all of that shit very differently from a person who cannot see beyond those bounds. And yeah, that fits this Akane, old woman Akane, to a T. That is 100% who that character is. A character who spent, you know, the better part of her entire life preparing for this moment to prevent a disaster of the entirety of the Earth being wiped out, right? And for Tenmyoji, a person far more bound in the 3 dimensions than far more bound by the 4th dimension than Akane, the two can't mesh. They just have, like, entirely different perspectives on the world to each other. And it's kind of tragic for, like, the moment that Tenmyoji gets to meet back up with Akane is the moment he realizes that Akane Kurashiki doesn't exist anymore. That's not who Akane is. She is so changed by her time preparing for all of this and simply her powers that the girl he fell in love with in high school just doesn't exist. And that sucks for people who are looking for that thing, but, like, I think it's, like, poetically tragic in a really good way. And the other thing is, too, that, like, Tenmyoji isn't lost with this. Like, the second that happens, he's like, okay, I've got Quark. I have other things mean things to my life. And the whole speech he gives to, I think it's Kevin, after... Wait, is it Kevin? Fuck, I forget his name. K. The speech he gives is very much like, that is his solidification that he has to live within this timeline. Akane doesn't, and she has, like, so different views on this anymore that it's just not compatible with him, right? He has to trudge on in the whatever timeline he ends up with. He can't look beyond the 4th. He can't look to other ones, because he has no way of... He has absolutely no way of, like, living in that same way. He has to make the most of what he has. And what he has is Quark. And, like, yeah, there's a lot of negatives there, and that ruins, like, what was, like, a huge crux of the relationship. Or it kind of, like, destroys a relationship that was the crux of the previous game, but it does it in such an interesting way that I feel like it's actually better than if it was just like, you know, if Akane had instead gone, like, you know, Tenmyoji and Akane have their moment, but they're like, no, I have to move on, I have to see this through, and it's kind of like a bittersweet thing. I honestly thought that would have been a lot more planned. Like, the fact that Akane is, like, quite cold to this, and Tenmyoji is like, oh, that's just, that's it, is, like, so much more interesting than the alternative. Yeah, anyway, I could talk about this game for hours and hours and hours, but, I want to get on to Zero Time Dilemma. I'm going to take a quick break, though, because I actually, like, I drank an entire glass of water and a hot chocolate before the stream started, and I've been needing to go to the bathroom ever since I started talking about this. So, we'll get Zero Time Dilemma, at least on the, title screen before I go, but I have a lot of really interesting feelings about VLR, specifically in reference to 999. I don't know anymore if it is literally my favorite game. However, I know that I will never forget it, and it sits way up in my memory for the best experiences I've had playing a game in my life. And regardless of my criticisms of some of the smaller moments, and I'm sure I'll come up with more if I watch more people play it, because I feel like my opinion is only really truly formed once I, like, bounce it off other people or see other people go through the same thing and talk about it, so I can more, like, solidify and crystallize my thoughts. Like, until that happens, I have, like, broad feelings about things, but yeah. This was a fucking treat, regardless, and yeah, I absolutely adore it.